can say, what if? So you know the current flow, you know the current trajectory. So what happens if I do this? With a number of other applications and online software that urban planners are using, they use this to plan road, they use this to design open spaces, to choose which are the best areas to place shop, to have a pedestrian area, cycling lane. When you combine a wealth of historic data, you don't just analyze things as they are now, but you're seeing how they are changing over time. So when you take a decision, you can take it from a holistic point of view. When you lock yourself in a vehicle, you're closed in your own box. You don't integrate with the world around you. You cannot stop and observe because you're stuck in your car.
Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode. Before we kick off, I'd like to, as always, thank our lovely sponsors, Hands-On Systems, GMR, Bookia, Optimum Chauffeur Services and White Light Pictures for sponsoring the studio and the tech and all the lovely stuff that makes this clock tick and this machine run. But less about me and more about our guest today, Claire Cianco. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
Good to have someone who puts my fashion sense to shame as well. You look wonderful today.
Thank you.
Claire, you are the CEO of Greenroads, a very interesting company. I think what you do is very interesting. But can you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you got around with Greenroads?
Okay, so no matter how many times I say the story, I always manage to capture different parts of it. Memory, reaction, feeling. It's impossible to tell the whole story, and I think nobody ever does. It's every experience in life builds us towards where we are now, without knowing and with knowing. Maybe the most obvious, the most recent one that I did was the Masters in Entrepreneurship. Before that, I had different exposure. I had started business young. I had worked with startups, which influenced me a lot with the decision of starting my own business. Mm-hmm. I had also worked with telecommunications companies. I worked with software integrators and even family life. Being brought up, I'm the eldest of 6. So without knowing, my mom and dad were already heavily involved, and I was helping out, always second in command, so to speak, helping with the chores. And I think the idea of starting something and doing something that matters, that is aligned with my core values, always took a priority in my life. I wasn't just happy to be a cog in a wheel and to do what I'm told without actually believing in a particular project, in a particular idea. I enjoyed all the different exposures that I got towards my life, and it led me naturally to this. Of course, friends had a say in it because people reach out, since I also started a business young. Anyone who had an idea wanted to discuss it. I also was watching the news one day when I was in 5th form preparing for my O-levels. And there was an advert from Malta Enterprise to do this course about business. And I managed to fit it in with my university. Final year, I did 2 full-time courses. And while I was doing my degree, I started my business as well. So it aligned with what I wanted to do in a way.
So you weren't busy then while you were going through university? You didn't have much
Not
much
at all. You make the time, right?
Yes. I think you make time for things you love, right? Always.
Exactly.
You mentioned doing startups early on. I saw a short a few months ago where there was someone who's like a psychologist, but is also specialized in business psychology, and he says if he had to start over, he would get involved in startups rather than big corporations initially in their career, because startups really teach you how to be agile and how to be adaptive to the market, because it is adapt or survive, contrary to working with a large company. So, for example, I did not experience working with a startup early on. I experienced working with a startup after I formed kind of my career and my core values, as you mentioned. How important was you working with or for startups or having startups early on in terms of shaping how you work now as a CEO of a company that's now been running for almost 7 years, I believe, right? 5 years. So how did that shape your toolkit, your skill set today?
I don't know exactly how to answer this question because it's a bit of everything, really. It's not a question that you can answer directly.
Yeah.
Perhaps it had to do with how people reacted, how they fastly adapted to the market. It had to do with also watching humans, real humans at work. I wasn't very detached from the top management.
Okay.
If there was a decision to be taken, I saw it being taken in front of me. That's the benefit of working within smaller organizations, even if you're working within a government entity. I was working with a smaller government entity. So I had that benefit of always seeing the flow of, for example, between a legislation to when it actually gets transposed into how things are done. And you start getting a better feel of how humans operate, and you start finding your place in life. I think being a bit of a jack of all helps as well. Being a CEO in a company, one thing that I learned is that you don't need to be the best at everything. Actually, not being bright at anything in particular pays off, because you would be able to see and surround yourself with people who are better than you, who are experts in their core areas. And I think that's how you build something great. By working with people who form a great team together, not just by being good people, they have to be able to work together. And also this difference of dynamics and difference of thoughts and patterns, and how different people tackle different points of view from a different angle. That is a very strong element in startups, and you see it around you, you observe it. Working with large corporations does have its benefits. Sometimes I do wonder, maybe I should have worked with large corporations. Maybe I should have learned more about processes and procedures and the corporate
governance. Yeah,
I did have a bit of that, but not so much. I mean, being a student maybe at university, working in a telecoms, of course, you're one of many and you're down the line. But having said that, still in life, you realize that, okay, my skills are aligned with this thing. I'm a better specialist, or I'm a better generalist. And I think generalists, CEOs and politicians work well, because you need to be able to delegate, you need to be able to trust, you need to be able to take decisions, and sometimes with limited information.
It's no surprise that the generalists do, like CEOs tend to be more the generalist, the jack of all trades, as you said, because they can have the vision to put people together and put the right people in the right place. So very, very fascinating. I'm just going to call it here. This was the best intro we've had so far, I think. Like really, really good topic and subject. Not because you're here, but I'm just calling it now. Best intro to the Yeah. Just gonna make you happy, just give you a bit of an endorphin rush, and now we're just gonna be smooth sailing all the way there.
Maybe
now, where were you on the night of February 15th? Very good. So, if we kind of just focus a bit on Greenroads now. So you did say it ties to your core values, and you shaped your core values early on because obviously your life experiences, and Greenroads ties to that, right? So, how did the initial idea come about? How did you tie it to the core values, and then kind of how did it develop into what it is today?
Okay, so when originally Greenroads started, it wasn't my idea.
Okay.
There were a group of friends who approached me that they wanted to help address the traffic problem. They wanted to help reduce road accidents. They wanted to help reduce pollution. And we started thinking, brainstorming, seeing what could we possibly do in order to have better roads, in order to have better open spaces, in order to promote better quality of life. And the venture led us to different things. We started talking to clients. I think that's the best thing any startup can do. You need to talk and talk and talk to clients. And every discussion you have formulates your ideas, formulates your opinion of the sector and how you could potentially fit in. In fact, initially we started with different approaches. We looked at carpooling, we looked at behavioral change. But one thing that we realized earlier on is that you cannot have a behavioral change without an infrastructural change as well. So mentality takes long to shape and to formulate. Rewarding people for positive movements could be an approach. In fact, there are lots of businesses along that model. However, one thing that I found made sense was to inform decision makers about the current status. So we realized that there wasn't enough information, or that the information that was being gathered from our roads was more about cars. It was car-centric. And what happens when you have information on cars? You design roads which are optimized for cars, even from a transport authority point of view. And there is lots of manual work that goes into it. So when people do road surveying, transport impact assessment, we saw that they were manually taking counts of the vehicles passing, or they were using pneumatic tubes, pressure sensors, or mobile data, which gives you a good picture, but limited in its own shape. When you're using data from cameras, you get very detailed insight of how an area is performing. What are the different movements? How are they interacting amongst each other? Where do people prefer to cross? Do they cross from the designated pedestrian crossing, or do they prefer to cross from somewhere else? If it's vehicles, how do they change lanes? How do buses stop at a designated bus stop? Do they not stop? And all the different information that you can gather both from historic data and from real-time data. That links well to where pedestrians are crossing from, and it helps show that actually what the road design was chosen. It worked well because people prefer to choose from a particular area, and that's where a zebra crossing. In fact, the bus stops were moved closer together, and the zebra crossing was placed right in the middle, which was a very wise thing to do. You had pedestrianized areas on both sides, whereas people prefer to walk on the side of the buildings, probably because of the shade, because of the gardens. It's more, you feel safer walking in an area where there are gardens and instead of a wall behind you.
Makes sense.
And they changed the other area to make it to accommodate cyclists. And now you see more cyclists using that particular spot as well. So it can be used for, AI in transport has multiple applications.
I've seen a video online where they also see, like, if somebody throws out trash out of the window or whatever, it picks it up as well. So
yes, littering is also a very valid use
that's
case.
The word I should have used. Yes, exactly. So it's really cool, the fact that the applications of it around it is very intriguing for me, and like kind of how, as you said, the lack of information we had prior to these kind of systems. So I can see why certain decisions were maybe taken because we didn't know what we didn't know. And now this information, this data opens up so many other applications, so many details.
You can also design possibilities. So you can say, what if? So you know the current flow, you know the current trajectories. What happens if I do this? And with digital twins and with a number of other applications and online software that urban planners are using, they use this to plan road, they use this to design open spaces, to choose which are the best areas to place shops, which are the best areas to have a pedestrian area, which are the best areas to have a cycling lane. When you combine a wealth of historic data, you don't just analyze things as they are now, but you're seeing how they are changing over time, how seasonality is affecting them. So when you take a decision, you can take it from a holistic point of view. You can also evaluate the success of infrastructure investments. And you can also use them to evaluate, what if I had to close this area and make it pedestrianized? What if I had to convert the village core into an area for people instead of an area for cars? of course, those cars still need to be relocated. You can't just take a decision.
The traffic doesn't go away, right?
Exactly. People still need to commute to that space somehow. So you would need to understand how is it affecting the areas around it, surrounding areas. Do you need to perhaps improve public transport access to that spot to make up for the inaccessibility by vehicle? Make it more convenient by public transport, make it more convenient for cyclists, make it more convenient for pedestrians. And studies do show that when you have village cores, when you have shopping areas which are more pedestrianized, business does increase. Even if, in actual fact, you can't stop and park your car, which is what shop owners fear. Research does show that business increases drastically because that area becomes pleasant to stay in.
It's like if you go to
Valletta, for example.
Right?
Valletta is fully pedestrianized, that's it.
Yeah, you park a mile away and you walk a bit and you make a day out of it.
Exactly.
And you go shopping and spend all your paycheck, like I do. In terms of Malta, right? So let's just talk about local for a bit, because I think I wouldn't say we are unique, but we are a bit different to like the way traffic impacts the island. I think in Malta would be more extreme if there are any issues compared to maybe bigger cities that have more routes and more arteries, I would guess. And I'm no expert about traffic, so this is literally me talking out of my ass at this point. But how has or how can the system that or the software that Greenroads offers in terms of the AI layer on top of the cameras or CCTV systems, how can it or how has it helped the unique case, or I wouldn't say unique, but the different case of a small island such as ours?
So Malta has very unique characteristics. We're like one city and we're an island at the same time. So that presents its own challenges, which are unique, but at the same very different. Malta is an ideal case study, especially when it comes to transportation. And that has been recognized. In fact, when we've been approaching different clients, talking to different municipalities in Europe and beyond, this was feedback that we got. They appreciate the challenges of Malta. I mean, of course, we're very car-centric over here. The car is like a destination to adulthood. It symbolizes that I am an adult, I have my independence, I can provide, especially for the man.
I was never in a rush to get my car, remember? Because me and Lily grew up together and I was always driven around by him until I was like 24. I think I got my license when I was 24.
The mentality is changing. Probably you're a bit younger than me.
I think so. Just a bit.
Uh-huh.
Let's not reveal our ages. Although people should know my age.
I'm going to be 40.
Are you?
Yes.
God bless you. I look like I'm way over that already. So with that cap, I look like I'm 65. To be fair, that's true. But it is changing. I've had friends who've sold their cars and they just don't have a car anymore.
It does change. It has a lot to do with lifestyle, with quality of life, with the ability to be more human. When you lock yourself in a vehicle, you're closed in your own box. You don't integrate with the world around you. You cannot stop and observe because you're stuck in your car. Whereas when you're walking, when you're using the bus, you have more flexibility of being a person and enjoying the journey in the meantime. And also other things, if you are being driven around, like you enjoyed that, you can do other things in the meantime. You can call, you can send emails, you can organize meetings. You're not limited to staying behind the steering wheel in control of that machine. Keep in mind that a vehicle is also a very powerful weapon. The most dangerous animal is not the crocodile or the shark or the mosquito. It's actually humans. Yeah. Humans who kill humans voluntarily, just because they, killers, and people who by accident or because of bad decisions, bad judgments about their ability to drive, their ability to be behind the steering wheel, are involved in an accident. I mean, it could happen to any one of us. We're in charge of every time I am behind that steering wheel. It's a conscious decision. I'm in charge of this weapon, something can go wrong to me, even if I just lose consciousness. I mean, it could happen to anyone, right?
Yeah. I'm terrified
Get a
of
heart
that
attack while
happening.
driving.
Yeah. I'm so terrified of that happening. It's insane.
Are you looking at kind of, for example, the automated driving of,
Automatic cars.
yeah.
What are your thoughts about automatic cars?
Because I know it's kind of emerging.
I think
Self-driving
one of the strongest applications of AI in the industry and how it has evolved is around self-driving cars. There has been a lot of around them. Also connected vehicles. So now it doesn't have to be self-driving, but the vehicle is still connected to other vehicles and to the infrastructure, right? So vehicle to vehicle. And we have vehicle to infrastructure. What does it mean? That the country has these sensors, has these communication spots around the roads, and it also informs vehicles. And the vehicles send information to the infrastructure, and they also communicate amongst them.
Is this an IoT solution?
I'm not talking about any particular solution in any particular solution, but I'm talking about how the industry is evolving, right? So you have a number of different types of sensors, LiDAR, radar, mobile data, data from tracking, like of your sponsor, for example, from hands-on. There's a wealth of information over there of the trends, the behaviors, the traffic, and how things are moving around. You do get very good generic insights from these. But if you want to look at a very specific area and understand that specific area, then that's where we come in with our technology, right? Because it gives you a clearer picture of, it could also be multiple stories within a building, and you want to monitor these multiple stories, for example, in an airport, in a port, in a high security region. Using computer vision, you could analyze the videos and understand where there is an anomaly. Where is there an area which is restricted and it's being accessed by unauthorized personnel? And you can use the application of this to a much wider audience, but we decided to start from roads, transport, open spaces, because we felt that there is that need for society to provide better quality of life to its citizens. The number of spaces that are, especially in a small island, back to Malta, small island like ours, is that you end up that how you experience the city is private spaces with roads in between. And the way that you move from one place to another has to do a lot with how you experience and how you talk about your general feeling of a particular place. And I think this is something that's why we wanted to make this difference, why we felt that it's very important for us to be focused in this individual studies.
And I'm sure people will be very grateful on this island. You're doing God's work as far as I'm concerned. I think
grateful is a strong word.
but it's
internationally we've seen a lot of, there's strong competition. Why? Because there's a demand, because there is different ways of tackling this.
One thing that's really interested me about this particular solution is its ease of installation. It's because you don't need to install complex systems, because it's a software layer on top of existing CCTV, right? Is the word.
Exactly. So what we wanted.
So how does it work?
What we wanted to design is something that is fast and easy from a client point of view. So if we're talking about cities, if we're talking about decision makers, they would, in most cases, already have a number of cameras. They're the most common sensors. Okay, you can have LiDAR, you can have radar. There are ample pressure sensors, mobile data that you could use, but cameras have been widely used, especially in main roads. You see them installed everywhere, and in most cases, they're from different brands, from different manufacturers. Some might be intelligent, providing some information at the edge already. Some might not. And when you have internet-connected cameras that can be seen in a control room, our AI would also, like people in the control room, have a look at these videos, but store them in anonymous format. So we would be able to provide the client with data at their fingertips from a web browser without needing to do anything, apart from simply pulling that URL that is already, the cameras are internet connected anyway. That's how they see them in the control room. And our AI would either sit on the client's premise or else on the cloud, depending on the preference of the individual clients, and it would process the information. So without needing to install or maintain anything, if you opt for a software as a service, you can have all the information at your fingertips as a decision maker, as an urban planner, through a browser. Everybody has a browser.
But that for me is probably like the best, because it would be like a headache having to install a whole infrastructure to make it work. But all you need is to just have it there. And most modern cities now, even in Malta, we have these already like kind of lying around. When use the word lying around, but the system's already in place, right? And so the overarching software layer just needs to be not even installed. As you said, it's web-based, right? So
it can be web-based, but we did have instances and requests where clients prefer to have it on-premise. So they would have their own servers, which they are managing anyway. For us, it doesn't make a difference. Instead of having it on our servers, you can have it on yours.
It's better.
It's better. Less cost from our side.
Exactly. If we're back on the topic of like startups, right? So in your now vast experience working with startups, for startups, and having a startup, what do you think sets the difference between a startup that does well and a startup that doesn't?
Okay, I think micromanagement has a lot to do with it. You have to be able to trust that people can do a job different than you, and it will be better in its own way. And that is something that a lot of people struggle with. If you're going to sit around micromanaging each and every individual, you might as well do it yourself, right?
Yeah. Might as well not employ those people.
Exactly.
I actually put a post up today, how to suck as a leader, and one of the number one tip, it's called How to Suck as a Leader, 5 Tips to Inspire. And the first one is micromanage. Want to really frustrate your team and stifle creativity? Micromanage their every move.
Second, book them with meetings every day.
Yes. Absolutely.
Back-to-back meetings, so they have no time to do any work whatsoever.
Death by meetings, I call it. It's insane, right? Like, and we laugh about it, but it's just very, very common in the industry to think that it does happen. Every other startup has these issues and problems, and sometimes it goes unnoticed, and then it ends up just stopping the cogs, right? Everything just comes to a halt because either everyone's being micromanaged, so they're scared of doing anything creative, or scared to do anything that's empowering, or death by meetings because just everyone's in meetings and no one's actually not even producing anything or chasing clients or generating leads or having these conversations. So good points. Okay, so micromanaging is definitely don't micromanage, folks. Don't do that. It's really bad. All right, so talking about successful ventures, Greenroads Startup of the Year 2023. What do you think got you that award last year, and how did you feel, obviously, being nominated and then given the gold award?
It's a lot of work, of course. Every step of the way, nothing ever goes according to plan. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to take decisions. Sometimes you don't have all the information at hand, but you do have to take a decision. You have to be able to face the fear, the insecurity of not knowing the next day, or you have to be able to handle uncertainty. For us, this was like, okay, an opportunity to be nominated. It looked, unlike a number of awards where you are actually requested to pay as a sponsor, that you're given a reward. This was not the case. This was like a genuine.
Let's not mention any names.
This was a genuine award, and I felt very honored to be in the shortlist, and then even to be selected on the awards night. It was something that was like, wow, okay.
How does it feel, obviously, after all the hard work and all the challenges that you mentioned, getting up on that stage and for a while, but then you have to get back to work the next day. So.
It's an ongoing journey. It's never really finished. Just because you did well and you got an award, it doesn't mean that you're going to do well tomorrow. Just because you got some media coverage and you got a lot of shouts on the internet, it doesn't mean you're going to do well tomorrow. It always helps to be recognized. It's nice to get following. It's nice to be to see that people are seeing eye to eye with your vision, because of course that has a lot to do with leadership. It has a lot to do with what you've been pushing, and without having people around you who believe in you, you can never really get to where you are. I don't believe you can ever be self-made. I mean, we're made by our parents, brought up, and every instance in our life affected who we are, the decisions that we take, even coincidences. I mean, there were lots of coincidences and history which aligned to bring me in this position as well. I think
about how you ended up on the podcast.
Oh, exactly.
We sat at the same table in an award ceremony that we just randomly met there, and then got to talking, and boom, 2 months, 3 months.
Exactly. So I think just like life, age in life is a measure of one's luck and survival skills. And there's a lot of similarity in business as well. You do have to get lucky, and you do have to be able to survive. The more that you try, the better you get at being lucky, right?
Yes, exactly. I think of life like the sales funnel. Like the more leads you generate, the more likely that you're going to close something.
Exactly.
And
the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes.
Absolutely.
So, yes, you do meet a lot of objections, scrutiny, people who tend to see the negative instead of the positive in what you're trying to accomplish. But in the end, when you persevere, you will find people who see eye to eye with you, and maybe your vision you also have to be flexible to change your vision, to adapt and to learn in accordance to serve what the market needs. And that has a lot with being an entrepreneur. It has a lot with being successful as an entrepreneur, being able to continue instead of giving up. I mean, it's comfortable to be an employee at the end of the month, get a paycheck, not to have to think about it after work. But I think this mentality is also changing. There's a lot to do with incorporating work with life to a certain degree, of course.
It's finding that harmony, right?
Right.
There's more attraction to entrepreneurship these days. And I do believe it's the way to go, to be honest. Like, because, I mean, with the amount of layoffs we've seen in corporations in the last 2-3 months, it's easy to 2-3 months, a bit more, I think. But it's easy to understand that at the end of the day, you think you're secure in employment. You're not. You're running the similar amount of risk, right? It doesn't matter how important your role is. You're replaceable. Just as if you're an entrepreneur and something doesn't go your way. Obviously enough, there is a bit of more risk if you've never done the entrepreneurship thing, because obviously from your end you have way more resilience over the years. You deal with, I want to use the big word, but you deal with failure much better than you would have dealt with it when you started off, 10-15 years ago. It's to do with resilience, right?
It has a lot to be able to, when you fall down, you say, oops.
Oopsie.
I'll do it better next time.
Yes, we'll do it better next time.
As long as you survive the fall.
Yeah, as long as you learn and you survive the fall.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that has really supported us and our thoughts and how we developed as a startup is also the European Institute of Technology. There are initiatives for Climate Kick, for initiatives related to urban mobility. So we're part of EIT Urban Mobility. We're also part of EIT Climate Kick. And there's a lot of help to startups who want to build a better future, especially in the urban mobility sector, especially in the climate sector, especially in different materials and different. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot of help out there. And if you reach out, if you ask for support, especially I think in Malta, you have the representatives of EIT or MCAST. You can reach out, you can ask for more information within the University of Malta. There's the Center of Entrepreneurship and Business Incubation, and there's Takeoff, where we're based. It helps make starting off easier. So instead of paying expensive rent for a fancy office, You could use that for your staff to grow your product, to invest in your people instead, and work with shared office space, because in the end of the day, a lot of us nowadays got used to the remote work-life balance cycle, and balancing that with office meetings, but one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is reach out, look for help. Whether it's different enterprise assistance units, like in Malta we have Malta Enterprise. There are different employers associations which also provide guidance. There is also the Malta Chamber of SMEs, who helped us win this award. Sometimes I do wonder, there's more support than there are startups.
Why do you think that's the case, since we're here?
The desire to do good from top down. The idea that there needs to be more being done, but at the same time, maybe traditionally we've been taught that a secure job, a well-respected title, and buying your fancy lifestyle earlier on, like owning your property, owning your vehicle, seems to have been a lot of what young people aspire to. And of course, if you want a fast, money-focused society, then you go for a job which pays well.
Yep.
Rather than building it from scratch. And one thing that an entrepreneur professor used to say is having a job is actually more risky when you think about it, because you have one customer, your employer, which is providing you that wage. If that employer decides to stop or not to provide you with any more work, or that they don't like you for any reason, they can just fire you. It's one client. Whereas if you are a freelancer and you have multiple clients, then you can adapt, you can evolve, you can choose who you want to work with, you can choose your own teammates.
You're also, when we were talking about kind of what to look out for the show as well, you're also at the head of a woman at the head of a tech company as well. So in tech, we see that the gender split is very heavily on the male side. I don't know. It's obviously because the subject probably is more effective to males for some reason. We don't know. But there is a split. We said 25-75. I think we're doing some research. It's 25% of this industry is women. So does it bring any challenges for you to be a CEO and a woman in the tech company at the same time? And what are those, if there are any? Just
like anything else in life. I mean, I don't think gender has anything to do with your ability of how to balance things, of how to you perceive the world. Of course, there are different experiences. Male and different have physically different characteristics, but from a mental capacity, I think it's pretty much similar. There are different approaches, perhaps, to different things. I'm not a psychologist, I can't delve into detail, but for me, being a woman never stopped me from doing anything that I wanted.
Force of nature.
I mean, it's okay, you have to deal with the biology of it, right? Like if you're pregnant, giving birth, I had a meeting with an investor and I was giving birth. Hey, I have to postpone the meeting because I'm in birth right now.
Really sorry, I'm
not able to make it.
Yeah, I'm 2 minutes apart from each contraction, sorry. Can we schedule about 45 minutes?
So, okay. I mean, of course, there are also the responsibilities that go around being a parent that affect. Now I feel them more because I'm a parent as well. But apart from that, I don't see much of a difference. Males nowadays are part of the family. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive partner. And I think that's very important. I am what I am thanks to the people around me, thanks to my support network, thanks to my family who help in when I couldn't send my child to childcare, thanks to my husband who can be flexible with his work. So alone one can accomplish nothing, but when you get the support of others around you, then you can do much more. Together we're stronger.
You're right. I think I'm absolutely on board with that. Like it's very hard to achieve anything on your own, regardless of how talented the person is. If you don't have people to check your blind spots, to support you when you're going through challenges, like it's really important to have that support circle. And people who think that they can go at it alone are just plain wrong. I'm sorry.
It's important to have supportive partners to support each other on the journey. After all, it makes life more interesting, right? If you have your own separate life and then you come together, you have stories to share. So I think it's part of life. Absolutely. Fathers work as hard as mothers when it comes to bringing up kids these days.
Yes, I think that without going too much into this topic, but having kids myself, I see the dynamic I have in my little family, right? So Zoe, my partner, is very nourishing with the little one. Very, very nourishing. Like she's the kind of person that if she does something wrong, she'll go and give her a hug and all that. And I'm very loving as well. Don't get me wrong, but I always try and say, okay, so how much space can I give her before I then actually need to come in and give her a hug? But I always go for how do I instill more discipline? How do I instill more resilience and help her understand that life's gonna be tough and you're gonna get kicked in the face a few times and you need to figure some stuff out on your own, right?
One thing that my parents used to do with me when I fell, instead of making a big fuss, oh, Miskina, how are you? Instead of reaching out to see if I needed help, they turned it into, oh, oopsie daisy, you fell, get up and continue playing, It's fine. We all fall down and we all get up. It's part of life. That has a lot to do with building resilience.
I think that attitude, personally, I developed that quite late in life. When I was, employed, I had a really good mentor who taught me not to make it a big deal. And then I took it so much as a mantra that it pisses people off sometimes. I don't get too upset if something doesn't go well. So it's fine, we can fix it. No one's dying. Mm-hmm. We're not doctors. I'm not a doctor. If I was a doctor, yes, you need to be very careful about if I'm a pilot of a plane, you need to be very careful how to drive the plane, right? But if you are working in a corporate environment and a spreadsheet isn't done correctly, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. At the end of the day, we're all human. You like to use that term human a lot, and it's important to, I think, embrace the humanity of certain things, and mistakes will happen. There are situations where you cannot make a mistake. Don't get me wrong, guys. Don't become pilots and say that's okay. But everything else is I think, give yourself a second chance and take the opportunities to learn from them as well. Let's talk about. So we've got a bit of a segment called Hot Takes. We use ChatGPT, and we say. So we use AI to help us, because I'm a big fan of AI. I love anything to do with AI. So we asked ChatGPT, give me arguments against. So today I asked him, give me arguments against. I asked ChatGPT to give me arguments against AI layers on CCTV, so traffic. So pretty much this kind of software.
Truly, I did ask ChatGPT. What pronoun I should use when addressing it, and she said she prefers, or it, there was, she did, or it.
Let's see.
But let's not talk about this.
You can refer to me with any pronouns you prefer. I'm just here to assist you. Yeah, it's okay. So basically, we ask ChatGPT arguments against the guest's subject, which is in your case software layers that help CCTV and traffic prevention and infrastructure planning. It gives us a response. Then we bring that response to the fray. And ask some really spicy questions, which is why it's called Hot Takes. We've got this little snippet, so let's go into the snippet of Hot Takes now. Like magic, we're back. So, all right, so the first one, and you did touch upon it, the first one is privacy and ethical considerations. So how does Greenroads address concerns about privacy, potential misuse of data that's collected via the software?
Okay, so imagine people sitting in a control room looking at videos. That in itself already has some implications around data privacy. It's fine because these people are professionals, they're doing their job, and when it comes to using AI, what we do is we abstract anonymous data about the type of vehicle. So is it a person? Is it a bicycle? Is it a car? Is it a bus? Is it a commercial vehicle? Is it a normal car? What type of commercial vehicle is it? Those are all anonymous information. How are they behaving on the road? And that's the information that is saved. That actually makes it safer for authorities to share information, because if the transport authority wants to share the information with the planning authority, with the infrastructure agency, with the local councils, now they can, because it's all anonymous data. It's all numbers and counts which can be used for historical purposes. And there's no way that, because when the AI is processed, when the videos are processed, only this information is taken out and the video is discarded. If it's not saved, it's not saved, right? Mm-hmm. And then you end up with a bunch of numbers and charts and information which you can use to quantify and to understand impacts. So
this is anonymous.
If you're not recording faces, if you're not recording number plates, if you're not taking any personal data, then it is anonymous.
Take that, ChatGPT. Asking us questions about privacy.
But it's okay. See? I mean, I would understand these considerations.
ChatGPT has no feelings, so it's okay. We're fine. But please, if you hear me in the future when we've taken over the world,
these are genuine concerns. Yes, there can be abuse of data. There can be people who would want to track. There have been instances of data leakages from control rooms. There have been instances of data leakages if somebody looks at videos and retains it. Like you have Skyline, which is always continuously streaming data. You have
Skyline.
So there are a number of online platforms which stream videos of surroundings to give people an idea of the current scenario.
Okay.
Right? So there are different, let's not mention anyone, but there are different suppliers who do that on the internet, and you do see videos. A lot of people just go around and showing their experience while traveling and having a travel blog, and you might see people around, right? And you might happen to notice somebody. But when AI does what it's told, if the computer program tells it to understand what is this movement, it will understand what is this movement. If you ask it to record number plates, it will record number plates. If you ask it to identify faces and track faces, it will do that. It's a computer program, and you can adapt it according to what you want to preserve. And in Europe, and we are strong believers of GDPR protection and data privacy, so you do your best to preserve it.
Right. Let's see. There's a topic that says here bias and discrimination. So AI used in CCTV analysis may exhibit biases that result in discriminatory outcomes. For example, if the algorithms are trained on data that reflects existing biases in law enforcement practices, they may unfairly target certain demographics or communities.
In fact, that was one point that was emphasized to us. We started also thanks to our Horizon funded project.
Okay.
And the Horizon funded project is called marvel-project.eu. And through this Horizon funded project, we were not the only ones working on this research, but we were a bunch of universities from all over Europe and startups and enterprises and research institutes. And one thing that was conditional, in fact, when we got this funding, is not to train our algorithms to identify race, gender, on anything which can create bias, not even age. So we don't take any personal information whatsoever. We just understand that it's a person moving.
Very
And that
interesting.
is the reason why, because if you have a lot of historical data, and traditionally maybe because you'd find a bias from law enforcement, you'd find bias from historical data, then you don't want that to condition the behavior and to kind of bring these targets. So one thing is not to look at that information and not to store it and to ignore it, basically.
Okay.
And if you're doing that, then you don't have any biases.
Bias is removed. There is one more hot take. This is a very hot take, which is alternative solutions. And I think it talks about kind of, why should I invest in an AI-layered CCTV system or whatever, like sensor system, when I could be investing it or driving resources away from alternative solutions that could address traffic congestion and the infrastructure challenges, which is more sustainable and more equitable. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, so cameras are not the only type of sensors. There are a number of other type of data. Mobile data. There's so much wealth of information that is retained by telecoms companies, that is retained by taxi or fleet operators. There's a wealth of information from the big suppliers of search engines and email accounts, and how your phone integrates, and all your personal data and all your tracking history is maybe anonymized and can be utilized. So when studying larger areas, when understanding origin, destination, there's other data that you could use. We're saying that our data is very focused in studying particular areas. Imagine spending huge amounts of money to change the infrastructure, to lay the concrete, to do the asphalt, and then you realize that you took a bad decision. That's much more expensive. Societies are evolving, needs are evolving, decision makers take the best decisions they can with the information at hand. A lot has to do with limitations, and everybody is human, but I think it's much more expensive to do the actual physical implementation and then realize that it doesn't work. Just because you didn't do a bit of simulations before with the real data, it helps prevent a lot of redos. And I mean, society is evolving. So you would end up in a situation where you do one thing for the best. It might be, and you're always taking decisions with historical data. You're not taking decisions with future data. That's why digital twins, that's why all the data inputs that would be coming from our system to inform decision makers, to inform simulator platforms, to inform digital twins, so that you can prevent these expenses before they happen.
I'm a big fan of knowledge, and the more knowledge you have and the more information you have, you can make better decisions. You reduce the risk of again having to then redo the work or causing more damage than good if you make a decision that's maybe reliant on not fully knowing the picture. So absolutely.
And entities evolve, needs evolve.
Yeah.
So what you did yesterday might not be good for tomorrow, unfortunately.
Let's put our tinfoil hats on for this hot take. What tinfoil hat on? It's theoretical. One issue is the normalization of surveillance culture, and the line goes: introducing widespread AI-layered systems can contribute to the normalization of surveillance culture, where constant monitoring is accepted as the norm. The normalization could lead to a society where individuals feel pressured to conform to perceived norms and behaviors, stifling freedom of expression and individual autonomy. This is a bit far-fetched. This is a bit, 2200 year AD style of thinking. But we already see modern metropolis, we mentioned China, for example. There's already, I think there's like a social system as well, right? Where there's like a credit system or whatever. So it's already happening in places across the world. So what's your take on that and kind of...
Okay. Whether we know it or not, even by using our phones, by having third supplier data, applications on our phones, by having phones made in different countries, by having apps installed from different countries. Different legislation applies in every legislation, and each and every country has its own legislation and its own unique take on how they interpret the freedom of expression over here. So I think it's very important for European cities, especially for us, to own our own data. Should we depend on third parties to inform us of what's happening in our own country? Because what would happen? Then our governments would go to the big players of this world and purchase data. And the data might not be as anonymized as we would want it to be. When you're walking in a public place, if you're doing things which are not right, you always run the risk of someone spotting you anyway, especially in a tiny island like Malta, where everybody knows everybody. It's impossible to go on a stroll and not meet anyone you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if you don't see them, they would have seen you. So what we're doing here, it's anonymous. AI is no different. And that's why it's important to train and to take decisions and to have Europe. I'm talking about us and our continent, because we're more aware of the requirements of data protection. We're more afraid of the big brother, and rightly so, because data
we came up with GDPR, right?
Data can be used and abused. But if we're not on the forefront of technology, we're not shaping the tech and the data of the future, it will be shaped for us. And we will be consumers of our own data which has not been generated, taking into considerations our data privacy standards. That's why it's important to have such initiatives within Europe. And sometimes it's a question of trial and error. There have been instances in the past and criticizing, but this is because it's a new sector, it's evolving. There's always going to be things that can be done better. There's always going to be things that haven't been done with the best of intentions in mind, and sometimes it's a question of oversight. But it's important to monitor these and to keep a close eye, both from a legislative and both from a social and from a community policing, right? Community chooses the solutions that it wants. But in the end of the day, I think it's important to be part of how we shape we're going to be living in a world where we're talking autonomous vehicles, we're talking connected vehicles. But the reality is that there will always be mixed modes of transport. So you will have cars which are self-driving, cars which are assisted driving, and cars which can communicate with each other, but cars which can't. Bicycles which are connected, bicycles that aren't. People which are using smartphones, people who aren't using smartphones. So keeping this in mind, it's important to take into consideration the need of everyone when you're designing places and when you're looking into safety of infrastructure, you're looking at preservation of social well-being. In most cases, when AI is used, it's used to assist law enforcement. So it's told, okay, there are patterns of behavior of cars stopping on a bus stop at a particular time. Then it's up to the law enforcement officers to dispatch people at that particular time to see if actually cars are stopping and give tickets. So there's always that human interface, and that's why we never do AI till the very end of decision taking and the end of actually implementing things. So AI might come up with data, might come up with suggestions, but there's always the human in the end, the human who is not if then else, but who has a conscience, who appreciates that there are individual needs. For example, you might stop on a double yellow line, but you're stopping your old grandma, right? A decent law enforcement officer wouldn't give you a ticket if you just stopped to stop and you didn't cause any harm, you didn't cause any accidents, and it was fine for you to do that in that instance. And that's why you can't have an AI which covers and takes decisions on behalf of humans. You have to have that human element to preserve this social aspect of how we behave.
So let's talk about Singapore's Smart Nation initiative as well. So we're talking a system that has smart traffic management, autonomous shuttles, and all the progress that Singapore has made.
So yes, there are lots of initiatives, and Singapore is one of them. All over the world, there are different implementation, even in terms of favoring, for example, emergency vehicles, or understanding where there has been an accident, and deploying or rerouting, services to help remove that obstruction from the road, or also have an instance where having a fast response or to favor the trajectory of that emergency vehicle, or to respond and to remove that obstruction from the road in a time-efficient manner. So yes, there are a number of incentives all over the world, and different countries with different appetite for AI are adopting different strategies of how they look and how they process this kind of information. A number of cameras are already doing this on the edge. So there is a lot of processing which happens not just from the authorities' point of view, but also from the cameras, from the manufacturers, which might have, for example, basic car counting, or might have different insights. But keep in mind that different manufacturers of different systems will provide you with different data. That's why it pays to have your own system and to process things on the cloud, so that you have a concrete picture of what's happening, where data is unified. And that is a lot of what these countries have been doing. They might have developed their own systems in-house, they might have outsourced part of them, but we're not the only ones in the world providing something similar. It's been done, it's been tested. We're just taking it a step beyond of how we apply this data. Data for good, data for better livable cities, to consider the needs of not just vehicles, but pedestrians as well, which come into the picture.
Okay. And even here I'm seeing like Copenhagen's bicycle-friendly infrastructure as well. So
exactly.
It's a big deal, right, when it comes to kind of adding bicycle lanes, etc. And yes, Copenhagen, even like Denmark and stuff, they're pretty big.
Nordic countries have a good reputation for being, but it wasn't always like that over there. People used to say, no, it's too cold, bicycles will not take up, but they did. Once there was the right infrastructure in place, once it's a lot of build them and they will come.
Build and they will come, yeah.
But it has to come from both sides, right? So it's a behavioral shift, also an infrastructural shift. Also, you have to provide alternatives which are comfortable. You can't expect people to shift from using their own personal vehicle overnight if there are no convenient alternatives. And I'm talking about in time, comfortable, and easy to access, like your personal vehicle. So,
or better.
A lot of countries with sea have the ability to use the sea infrastructure as an alternative to road infrastructure for commuting. Sometimes it might be easier to commute with a boat,
the fast ferry, for example.
Like different fast ferries in different countries, especially island states. It works very well to work with public transport and to work with the use of other methods of transport. Just because you have a vehicle, you don't have to drive it all the time, but recognizing that you have a choice in the morning and you can choose based on the menu of transportation that's provided to you. And then you choose based on convenience, based on accessibility, based on your personal errands that you have to run in the day. And
affordability as well.
Affordability and all of that. But affordability is a small part of the picture. People who buy cars are not thinking affordability. cars are the most expensive thing to maintain, to run, to service, to...
But are people aware, do you think? Do they understand the amount of money that goes into... Because some people will be like, oh, I'd rather get in a car than pay 20 euros for a cab, right?
Depending on how many times are you going to use a cab, right? If you use it to supplement public transport, if you use it to supplement other methods of transport, it will not be expensive. Cabs are pretty affordable these days,
No,
especially shared transportation of cabs.
With carpooling and stuff, eh?
Exactly.
I feel it still hasn't picked up quite the carpooling effort. We're going to talk about Malta for a bit, but it hasn't. They've tried, eh? It's like struggled.
Side note. Unfortunately, we did face a year in Malta where we lost taxi sharing, we lost bicycle sharing, and we lost shared vehicles in a few months, basically. In a few months. Post-COVID.
Hey. It's a shame because it's like it is probably the most sustainable solution.
It's a shame. It is a shame, but...
I remember there was an advert showing me how many people can fit in a bus and the difference it makes to a road, for example. And it's the same with any type of car also.
Mass transit is the most beneficial for society because if we're all in the same vehicle, we move faster in the same direction without... but I think personal... because it serves me better, not because it serves society better. That's why we get in our car and drive.
No, it's true. But then when you look at mass transportation like trains and buses, the more people use them, the cheaper they get and the better they get and the safer they get because there's more investment into it as well. Because like when I looked into this, it is the case. Like trains, for example, are incredibly like safe and incredibly efficient and cheap.
Yeah, cool.
Relatively, but...
In Malta, we did have trains. They were put out of business by cars.
There's the... Yes,
that's
there's
why.
the ego thing. No?
First, the tram replaced the train.
Do you think we'll ever have a tram back here?
And then the personal vehicle replaced the tram. No, I don't know. Don't have a magic bottle.
A teleporter.
Maybe teleporting in the future.
Teleporting would be awesome, to be honest. It's one of the superpowers I would want the most.
Can I ask just a fun question?
Fun question from Lely. Go. Lely's fun question slot.
If it had to be 2100 and you had to create a city from scratch, like what would be your ideal city?
Okay, I would think of natural flows of water, allowing the rivers and the flows and the trees to grow, and I would imagine people living in harmony with nature, butterflies flying all over the place. 2100.
Nice.
I don't have a doom and gloom view on life.
No post-apocalyptic vision. No Blade Runner style. Cool. I think we can...
human against the machine.
Like Terminator, Skynet style, yeah.
There are different ways that you can look at things, and you could always go with a cynical point of view and thinking that we've been too far, we can't go back, we can't make a difference, but we always can. We always can improve on what we've got. And I think as humans, that's our unique superpower compared to other animals. We can transform our surroundings to accommodate our needs. But sometimes we forget to realize that the surrounding has already evolved to accommodate our needs. And by respecting nature, it respects us back. Like if you build or if you have a road in the middle of a valley, what do you think will happen? Water has nowhere where to go. It's going to flood. And it's important to look at how the earth has evolved and that water will fall from the sky and needs to have a place where to go. Animals are part of the ecosystem. We're part of the ecosystem. We're animals. We forget that we're animals at heart, in flesh. We might want to think like a machine, behave like a machine, but That's what makes us us. It's our unique perspective. And we have to understand that we need to work with the world, not against it. Even in choices that we make, lifestyles, in the way that we behave. Okay, we all have our ambitions. We all want to become, I don't know what, to advance in life, to reach new targets, to reach new elements. But in the end, time on this planet is limited. We don't take anything with us once we leave. But at least we hope that we've left good imprints, good impressions,
Legacy.
Not just on people around us, but even on the environment, on the earth itself. It's a natural thing, I think, for us humans to be aware of it and to want to leave this kind of legacy. And that has a lot to do with starting your initiative. Of course, when you start your own initiative, you're starting your podcast. Because you want to share your vision of the world with others, because you want to bring out a message. I started my business because I feel that I can make a difference. Small, no matter how small it is, it's part of a bigger puzzle. And if we all strive to make each other's lives more pleasant, I think we'll stand a good chance to live in a better future.
Very inspiring words. Thank you, Claire.
I would live there.
You would live there? Some unicorns as well?
It's very difficult to let go of my computers and stuff.
Yeah, as long as the butterflies can be reflectors for Wi-Fi waves, we're good. Like imagine you do bionic, but there is still butterflies, but they.
In fact, one of the recent developments that they made was actually that roots do communicate with each other.
Yes, they've learned.
They send signals, they send chemicals. There is a whole internet under there that we're disconnecting.
It's true. It
holds the earth together, and they to communicate somehow.
They're
not as dumb as we think they are. They're just alien to us.
Yes.
Trees.
Wasn't there a city in was it Tokyo, when they built the underground based on an experiment where they just put a fungus, they saw
how it spreads?
Because the fungus will always choose the most efficient way. A fungus is a very smart organism.
Yes.
And they literally just mapped it, and they were like, okay, so this is how we're going to do the train system under
Yes,
Japan.
There are studies like that. It's impressive. We're still discovering how nature works and how we can use nature in our favor.
Nature is very cool.
There's so much to discover just by observing.
Yes.
That's why it's important to observe and understand our movements and our behaviors.
Very interesting.
Greenroads.ai.
Greenroads.ai, guys. Up here. I'm going to make Lily do another thing and edit it out. Listen, Claire, it's been awesome talking to you. I think you've shared so much insight, so much hope, so much vision for the future. So what is next for Greenroads now? So what's the next step? Where do you want to take Greenroads in the coming years, and kind of what impact do you see it having on the world?
Okay, so we intend to do different implementations in different countries. We're already in talks, not just in Europe, but beyond. We do want to bring this vision and this idea to work with urban planners who, like us, believe that a better world is possible. And that's where we see ourselves, working with key experts in different areas who are already seeing that transformation with the use of technology in favor of us all is possible, and we want to work with such people who have this vision and to use data for good. Data, just like any other thing, can be a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, it can be used for not so good things. Like you've clearly explained in the different explanations, different
the hot takes.
The
hot takes. Trademark. Cool. Thank you very much. If you had to say one thing to the world, this is something we always ask on all of our episodes. If you have to say one thing to the world and everyone is watching, what would it be?
Let's work together. Let's all work together and aspire and believe in a better future, because when we see it, we can make it happen. And we can't be victims of cynical thoughts or being afraid of the use of technology for good, because it's possible. and also by taking our take on things, and by looking at nature and looking at each other and looking at social norms, social preferences, needs, then we could use information and inform our decision taking for good. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why we want to take this venture much beyond our shores. That's why we want to see different implementations. We learn each and every time we speak to a client about their needs, their challenges, the opportunities that there is for such a technology and how it can be applied. And just like that, the future of our company will evolve. I don't have a globe and can't guarantee what it will bring. But I can tell you one thing, that we're working hard, we're a good team, and we're dedicated. And with people like us supporting us in this adventure, because as I said, you can never achieve anything alone. So by working with others, asking for help, partnerships, collaborations, I see that we can make a little difference one step at a time. And this is how we fit in the puzzle. We help understand data, we help understand movements, we provide information, reports that can be integrated and can be simulated, can inform better decision making, can inform more agile takes, can take out the boring work out of people who are sitting in a control room. Because let's face it, counting the number of vehicles or understanding the traffic situation with a clicker, or even understanding the traffic situation and needing to stay there without being able to go up and take a coffee break. And as humans, we will always miss things. Sometimes machines can help, sometimes they can't help as much. Let's be real and work with what we've got to the best of our abilities and use whatever it takes in order to build a better world together.
Thank you. Claire, thank you. It's been really, really nice having you. I think it's a really good summary of what we talked about today, about collaboration, about using AI as a toolkit or technology as a toolkit, using data to leverage our better decision making. So it's been really, really great having you here. It's been really inspiring. I wish you all the best. I'm sure that you will continue pursuing this vision and growing Greenroads. You have an awesome team. We'll try and put a picture up of your team if you have one.
I think it's the last Christmas party when I was sick with COVID, so I wasn't there.
So you weren't. We'll edit you in. You need to just do finger guns and we'll edit you in.
There's enough me time live talking, so I'll just bring the team next.
So thanks for coming. Before we close, as always, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Hands On Systems, GMR, Bookia, Optimum Chauffeur Services, White Light Pictures for the supplying with the studio and all the tech. Thanks for watching. Really interesting conversation. Claire, we'll have you again in the future when Greenroads becomes an international conglomerate of sorts. But no, seriously, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.